Hi, welcome back. It's Neil Millard here, and we are building our own container system. We are going to be using Nerd, and where we left off was we tried to get an async test to pass, and we were getting an error saying that we didn't have a library installed, when we in fact did have the async IO PyTest library installed, and it still failed. Well, I looked back at the documentation, and all we needed to do actually was just add this wee little annotation that says PyTest mark async IO. So rather than importing the async IO library like I did last time, we just import PyTest library and then we mark it with it's an async IO test. At that point, it's all happy. It calls async, it does some stuff, and we're all good. So we're on to this test here. Now, as a summary, why do we need this? Okay, so we've got a test failing at the moment. It's called test get free CPU cores, because we want to know if our host has got a certain number of CPU cores, let's say 8 for example. We then want to go get them, and as a result take away what our containers are currently using, or more specifically what the containers are allocated to be able to use. So when you start a container, you can say, hey container, you've got the ability to use 1 core, and then it can use anything up to that 1 core, at which point the Docker runtime is then going to stop it from running any faster than that 1 core. It doesn't have to use all of it, but it's limited to that 1 core. Now it can be across multiple cores. Containerd lets it use multi-threading and all that sort of thing if it needs to. So it's not limited to just 1 core, but it's limited to the amount of processing that 1 core would give it. So before we tell the API about how many free cores we have as our node, we need to work out how many we've allocated in the first place. And to do that, we need to list all of the containers that are on the system currently and how much allocated CPU and memory they indeed have. So this test is currently failing, where we're testing get free cores, and we call this get free cores function, and it comes back with something that's not a half. So let's look at this function. So this function says cores, go get the CPU cores. Great, we know how many CPU cores we've got. And now we've got this comment, get allocated CPU cores from containers, which we don't actually do. So that's why the test is failing currently. And why don't we do that? It's because we haven't written the code yet. So we've got this library, we've got Nerd, which is going to be our container operations interface class that then talks to, well, funny enough, Nerd. And that's going to be able to get all the containers for us and get container info, because when we can get the container info, we can see how much memory and CPU is allocated to the container. Where we got to was this test. Like I said, we got this test. It now gets all containers and it passes. Now, this is a rubbish test. I'll tell you for why. So we find Nerd, which is our Nerd class. Now we're just mocking it. It could be anywhere. It doesn't matter at all, because what we're doing is we're mocking it. We're then loading up some get all containers with this value, and then we're calling it. Now, if I delete this file where the actual code is, it doesn't matter 1 bit. It's not running that file in the slightest, which is really bad because we're not testing our code, which is a good job really, because we're not actually doing anything. So what happens if we actually run the code? Well, let's do that now. So rather than setting up a magic mock that looks like that, we are going to create an actual Nerd instance. Okay, so we did have this code last time if you want to go look see. But so if we've got our actual code instance called Nerd, Given that these running images, well, Nerd's got no way of knowing that right now. So we don't want to override that, which means when we call await get all containers, it's now going to actually call our code that's here. Whereas before, it would have just returned this return value, which is just this. And of course, that totally equals that. Why wouldn't it? So let's run the test again. And of course, this time it fails because we have no running cores. It says it's empty. We've got no containers running. Great. So let's get into the implementation detail. I know, exciting times. So when we get all containers, what we actually want to do is we want to call Nerd, and we're going to say, Nerd, can you tell us about all the running containers? Right, and that's fair enough. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to try, because we're going to stick stuff in an exception loop in case stuff goes wrong. And then we're going to do some stuff, and then we're going to accept. Now what we're actually running is a subprocess. So we're going to go subprocess called process error and file not found. Yeah, that looks about right. We are, oh, it wants to import subprocess. I should probably have let it do that. There we go. Ooh, we got a choice. There's one in the async library as well. That's a great question. I don't think we need the async version, so we'll just go with the normal subprocess. And when this does fail, we want to do something with the error, so we're going to grab it as E as well, as my ID is helpfully doing for me here. So this will just say if, in the event of an exception, if it's a subprocess called process error or a file not found error, then it's going to throw an exception with E, and then we can just print getting containers, error getting containers with the detail. Super. And then that will just blow up. That's fine. So what should we actually do with Nerd? Well, we're going to get a list of all the running containers. So we can call Nerd with our subprocess. So subprocess run, what this does is essentially like you go into the command line and typing in a command. So helpfully, my ID is already helping me here. It says call nerd ps. So this is identical to us typing in nerd space ps on the command line. Now it's going to come back with lots of stuff, so we want it to be a bit quiet. And that should be fine. My ID is suggesting all sorts of fun things here. We want to capture the output of the command. So whatever the command puts on the standard output, we want to see. We expect it to be text. And not gonna lie, I don't know what that does. What's it do? It's a check. Great. What does that do? Come on, give us a clue. Any ideas? Check bool is false by default. Okay. Is it going to tell us down here what it does? No. Why would it do that? Oh, here. If check is true and the exit code was non-zero, it raises a called process error. So that's exactly what we're doing here. So if this returns a non-zero, which most error codes are, it then raises this exception, so we can call that exception and do something funky with it. Great. So we've got our result, and as the ID is pointing out, we're not using the result at the moment because it's not used. What we're going to do is, okay, that's one way of doing it. We've got container IDs is the result. The result is then the standard out because we've asked for the output, and then we've used another function called split lines. That's not the only way to do it. You could also strip and split on the carriage returns or something like that, but that does it all in one for us. And I think that's all we actually want. So the AI is helping me again because it says, oh, you want to return a list of containers. So here are a list of containers. So it says, okay, let's return a list of a container with the ID being self. That's not entirely true. Sorry, yes, read it wrong. Container ID. So the ID is whatever ID equals. ID in this case is ID in container IDs. And container IDs is the list of the lines here. That's probably all we need to do actually. It's going to return that. Is that all we need? It is for now. That does get all the containers, so we will get a list of containers. And then for each container, we can go off and get its IDs. So in our test now, we want it to return with 2 IDs, being beef and chicken, apparently. So then when we get all containers, it will, in fact, get beef and chicken. So if we run that now, it's still going to fail because it still came back as empty. And this is due to the fact that we haven't mocked anything. So now we've actually written our code, we know that we want to mock this subprocess run. So subprocess run is going to come back with a result. It's actually a completed process, apparently. So we can mock a completed process. So let's undo this a little bit. In fact, I don't think we need that at all right now. We want to mock. No, we don't want to mock that. That's very nice, but that's not what we want to mock. We want to mock the fact that when we run subprocess, it's going to come back with those things. So we've got our subprocess result. I can't remember what I called it now. Let's go double check what that is. It is a completed process, apparently. And the completed process is just going to come back with some carriage returns, some container IDs in it, because we gave it the quiet option. Now, I'm not entirely convinced that that's what it's going to bring back. So how can we test this? Well, as it happens, we can actually test it. Let's just bring up a Linux window here. Ta-da! And then we can see what it actually returns on the command line, which would be very useful for us to see, right? So if we go, what's the command? We're calling it NerdCTL PS. Oh no, Nerd's not installed. Okay, so sudo apt install NerdCTL. There isn't a package called NerdCTL. Well, this is a pickle. Way to go, live demo gods, you're failing me. What's the package actually called? Maybe it's installed as part of the container package. I thought I'd already done this, but I might not have done. Containerd. Yes, Containerd is already installed. Right, let's just have a quick look at the internet for how to install NerdCTL. I thought I'd already installed it, or rather I thought that our friend Containerd installed it for us, but apparently not. Right, how to install It's known to work. That's useful. It doesn't tell me how to do it here. The binaries are here. In addition, we need this, that, and the other. Oh man, this is a pickle, isn't it? So go get a binary and then throw the binary on. And that's basically what it says. Okay, let's have a look at the binaries. Because what I don't want to do, I don't want to mock it and then for it to be complete rubbish. Because that's not very useful. Now the question is, do I need the Windows version or do I need the Linux version? I'm going to download the Linux version just because I enjoy a hard life apparently. Okay, here we are, we've downloaded it. Is that somewhere where we can get to? I think so. I think if I go to downloads here. Nope. What have we got? Absolutely nothing. Tell you what we can do. What we can do is, I should have done in the first place. Do you have curl? Do you have wget? Okay, wget's easier to use than curl in this instance. Go get that file. Okay, now we've got the file, we can untar it. Yep. They're zipped and it's, I want to see what's in it and the file name like that. Oh, sorry, we need to extract it as well, of course. Okay, there we are. We've got two things in here. So if I now, is that executable? It looks like it. It now says container D is not running. You can use container D rootless setup shell installed to start it. Oh, that's handy. Let's do that then. And now it says container D needs to be under the path. Okay. What is the path? Oh, look at that. We're not only getting programming with Python, we're also getting some shell in here as well. I'm looking for something vaguely local that I can shove it in. You know, somewhere friendly, like use a local bin or something like that would be good. Yes, we got to use a local bin. Okay, so let's sudo. No, we're sudoed already. And we want to go to somewhere like, yeah, we're in root. Where were we earlier? We were in, let's see if this works. There we go. So there's our files. So we want to copy container rootless star, and we're going to copy it to user local bin. And we also want to copy NerdCTL to user local bin. And now I should be able to run that command again, but I don't need, actually, it might need to be root to do it anyway. Oh, of course I haven't got my history because I haven't got my history. Alright, contain nerd. boys. Wonderful stuff. Right, container. Can't spell. Rootless setup tool. I swear there was something after that. Was it install? Refusing to install it as a root user. Good job. I'm very pleased about that. So let's do this again, but without it. And now it says rootless kit not found. Ugh, this is going to be hard work, isn't it? I can see that there's build kit. Oh yeah, the rootless kit. These dependencies are included in nerd Oh, okay. Was there another? Was there another path I should have downloaded? Let's have a look. There was, in fact, no further. Oh, another 16 assets. Ah, there we go. If you then expand the expandable bit, it then does it for you. So wget blah. My goodness, this is a bit bigger. That's because it's got all the stuff you actually need in it. So the first time you're installing it, you need all of this extra gubbins. And the second time you install it, of course, you only need the revised stuff. That's why they give you 2 packages. That's nice of them. What's not so nice is being hungry. I'm not hungry though. We're good. Got my coffee, had some lunch. We're just padding for time here, waiting for this to download. This is the trouble with the live stream, is we can't fast forward this bit. Blah, 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 blah. In hindsight, could have done it earlier, but there we go. What can you do? I got a fresh install today. Now let's see if this does this vaguely nicely. Okay, so let's get rid of the old stuff a minute. Yeah, let's get rid of that as well. Right, tar extract zipped. Let's see what's in there, and the file name, and nerd this time. Okay, look at that. We've got all sorts of gubbins in here. In your standard local type thing. So I should have probably. So it wants all of that in the thingy location. Is it called user local? Because that would be really nice if it was. Yes, it is. Right, so then I can just extract it straight over the top of that. So let's extract that from there. I need to tell it where this is, which is about there, and now it should just permission denied everywhere. Of course it is. Right, sudo. Alright, now we're root. Now we can cd to user local, and now we can go find that command. So I can nearly remember it, right? It won't be in the buffer, so we want to tar extract, and it's from the Neil home folder, and it's called nerd full. Right, that's dumping all of that into the local thing. So now we can come back out, and if I do NerdCTL, yeah, of course that's what I meant. And now it says it's not running, so we now need to start it. Let's hope that this just works this time. Where's that start command? Here it is. Now it says new UID map executable not found in path. Yeah, no kidding. I've not heard of that one. Wonder if that's a mystical thing. It doesn't mention it anywhere in the requirements docs. NEWUIDMAP. Yes, it's a Linux command. Who knew? It sets the proc UID map based on a thing. That's great, but how do we install it? Install. Okay, Stack Overflow article. Always useful. Yeah, let's move that over there so you can see it. I'm trying to install Docker rootlessly. I don't have the package installed, so I installed it, copied it myself. Hey, it didn't work. What do? I install the package. They're changed. Also, see here. Okay, that smells. What else did we get? Podman can't find it. Docker rootless. You must install it. Yeah. How do we install it? They're provided by the UID map on most distributions. Okay, that's the gem we wanted. So we can do sudo apt get install. Forgot the name of the package already. UIDMAP. Yes, we do. There we go. Right, okay. Let's try again. Okay. That seemed to work. What did it say up here? It says enabling cgroup v2 is highly recommended. Blah blah blah. Okay, we might need C groups. Hopefully it installed some C groups because we will need that. Right. So we've got Nerd installed finally. We can now go ahead and do something useful, I think. Okay, so NerdCTL ps-q. Look at that, nothing. That's because we don't have any actual running containers. So let's start a container. Something like NerdCTL run. Actually, I'm going to cheat here. We've got some code that we threw together earlier. I think it's under main. Here it is. Oh yes, this is some stuff. Well, Redis. There's a test container, isn't there? My mind is telling me that there's a test thing where we can test running containers. Oh, I've lost my window now. There it is. Right, test run -it, which is interactive, and a terminal. --rm means clean it up afterwards. And let's do Alpine because that's a small container image. It won't take very long to download. So it then said, I'm going to download it. Unable to retrieve credentials. Failed to resolve that. Unable to create. Right. I think this is because now we're in the new world. We need to authenticate with Docker for us to download anything. Which is annoying. Now with the Docker client, it probably does that automatically and logs you in as an anonymous user or something like that. But with this, it's not going to. That said, I wonder if there's another specific command we can do. So here it says Nginx Alpine. Did I just give it some complete rubbish? No, I didn't give it some rubbish. I mean, I might have done, but it actually says I need to log in to Docker Hub, and I'm not entirely sure how to do that right now. So every day is a school day. We want to NerdCTL credentials. Log into Docker.io without credential. Spits out you cannot log in without a credential. Yeah, no kidding. So here's where I'm looking. It's on the NerdCTL issues. What version are you using? So nerd fallback builds CTL and build an image. No, we're not building one. I mean, there's an idea. We could build one. Apparently it's fixed. That doesn't help us. Oh, a workaround. That just tells us that. Pushing and pulling images by byte plus. Ooh. I think this is going to say how to. Standard. Configure, blah blah blah. This is not very command liney, is it? So we can pass some parameters in. A username with a password. Then we can push. So does that need to authenticate either way? Or we can build a local image. Does it run a local registry? It should do, shouldn't it? Let's see if we can build a local image, shall we? Okay, we can remove everything in there. This is a dangerous command. Way. Living on the edge, man. You'd never guess I'm in a VM, would you? So let's make a directory where we could git clone something that's basic with a container, right? That's probably better. GitHub. I swear there's a hello world image. Right. The official image for hello world. That's what we want. I'm on the Docker page for official images. I'm seeing if there isn't a actual source code. I swear there is. Where to get the files? Okay, well there's that one. That might be close enough. Go to code. Hoo-wee! There's a lot of code in here. Okay, we're on an AMD 64. So we'll grab one of those. And what's in the Docker file? Look at that. Hello, copy hello to there, do that. Okay, let's just grab this then. We'll do it a little bit manually. That's fine. This is how to build a Docker image, folks. So we need a folder. Let's call it hello. Oh, hi. Okay. Whenever you build a Docker image, you need a Docker file. Other Docker file designations are available, I'm sure. we'll then paste our commands in. So the commands mean from scratch. That means from an empty image, nothing in there. Then we're going to copy something called hello to the root, and then the default command will be hello. So this means we need a file called hello, and interestingly it's a raw executable, which is not that useful right now. So copy that address here, use our friend wget, go get that raw file. There it is. So now we've got a raw file called hello, and we probably need to make it executable, I would say, because it isn't at the moment, is it? Okay, so chmod +x hello. There we are. So that's everything we need for our basic image, and now we're going to build it. So how do you build an image? Well, it's probably easier said than done, but we're going to go NerdCTL build, and then we're going to give it a tag. So we're going to call it hello, and then we need it to give it a path, which is here, and dot is here, current directory where the Docker file is. And now build control needs to be installed, and build kit D needs to be running. That's because build kit isn't running. So here's another thing you need to know. To build images, you need another library entirely. See, Docker really does give you a lot out of the box. So it's given us a command here. It says we can, this is instantly telling us Moby. Moby's the code project for Docker, in case you didn't know. So we can also run our friend here. That didn't work as far as I'd like. Okay, container D, containered, rootless, because that's where we are. Set up tool, install, build kit. Because we installed the full, we should have everything. So now it says it can't install it because we might need to uninstall the current rootless setup. Oh, alright. That's interesting. I would have thought they'd coexist, but clearly not. Right, copy that, paste it in there, do that. It then says some stuff is not installed. What are you talking about? And to remove data, then we can run this. I think it did say that, didn't it? Yeah. But it should have done it all at once. So the uninstall said this, and then to remove the data, do this command. So I'm going to assume it did do that command. Okay. So now let's install it with bootkit. Now it says you should install containerd first. Oh brother, that's what we just uninstalled, right? And now we install this. Failed to start, you might need to uninstall. Okay, something's clearly fudged here. There's me thinking that building an image might be easier. I was obviously wrong. So apparently it runs rootless setup tool ns enter build kit OCI blah blah blah, and it fails with something. Failed to start the service, run journal something to show the error log. Okay, let's have a look at the error log. We might need to be root to do this. Well, this is really more rabbit hole than expected. So it says it exited with a failure because IP tables was not in the path. So there we go. What else is it whinging about? We might as well check. Failed to monitor for changes, no such file or directory. ECD build kit CDI. CDI, but yeah, it looks like IP tables not being installed is the killer here. So I really do have a very closed down Ubuntu install. Let's have a look what IP tables, how to install IP tables in Ubuntu. Oh, okay. It's called IP tables. I know, right? Right, sudo. There we are. Okay, apt get install IP tables. Yes. There we go. Okay, so now I've got IP tables installed. Let's try this again. Look at that, works straight away. Super duper. So now to control it, we need to start the service. So we can do sudo systemctl --user start build kit service. Failed to connect to bus. I don't know what that means. Let's go to that option. There we go. So now we've started it. Let's see if our build command works now. So remember, we did this a long time back. Look at that. We've now built the image. Who knew? Right. So that's how to install everything from quite a raw point of view in order to build an image. And now we can do NerdCTL full of positive energy. IT RM, and we called it hello, right? Well, look at that. It ran and then it exited. So if we now do our NerdCTL, remember where we started with all of this. PS. Oh no, we still haven't got anything. That's because the hello container exited almost immediately. I say almost immediately, milliseconds in between. So we need something that runs a bit longer than that. What can we have that's a bit longer? I don't know. I mean, I'd say something like sleep, but then that might need libc, and if you need libc, then you might need some other bits of an operating system, whereas at the moment we are basically running a Go binary. I just imagine it's a Go binary. There might be a Rust binary, who knows, that didn't need any external dependencies or anything at all. So see here, try something more ambitious. You can run an Ubuntu container with run bash. Yeah, we could if we had it. Right, we're getting way off track here, aren't we? And all I want to do is run a container that's running. Might just actually log into Docker Hub and see if that will work. Or we can assume that the output, I wonder if there's a man. Yeah, we always need a man. NerdCTL. No manual entry. Of course there isn't. I want to know what the output looks like. As simple as that. And being naive, I thought running it would be easy, but of course we don't have any of the niceties installed right now. So we cannot. I mean, it does do compose, but then we need to pull images, and therefore we need to authenticate. Okay, let's authenticate. See, by default, it logs in. And then it stores everything in a JSON file. Of course it does. What it actually does if you tell it that NerdCTL login. What does it actually do? Yeah, asks for login. Of course it does. Okay. Let's see what's going on in here. Can I sign into Docker Hub? Apparently so. Right, I'm going to hide this. Not because I don't trust you or anything, but I don't know what it's going to show next. There's me frantically typing a password I think will work, and it said yes, it did succeed in logging in. This is interesting. Right, let's try, just for giggles, our Alpine service again. That's build, has run. Nginx Alpine. Unable to retrieve credentials. Okay, so we don't have a credentials helper. This is quite disappointing, really. Okay. We are getting annoyed, as I'm sure you can tell. So there was a thing somewhere that told me how to log in. This is way off track. All we want to do is have a Docker container run, which would be useful if we'd already set up our code to do this. But it is exposing some other stuff that we'll need to bear in mind later on. Like when we're pulling the images, we actually have to authenticate or build them ourselves. There's some stuff. I'm looking at that thing again earlier where it said how to log in. It looks like it's a problem in BuildKit actually. Pushing and pulling images, that's where we saw it, wasn't it? They did a little nerd authenticate. Let's see if that works. Because it says the username. So I've already done a login, haven't I? But then when we did the nerd, and then we do the Alpine, unable to get credentials, fetch failed, host registry 1. And I would have thought the default login would be to Docker Hub, but hey, maybe it isn't. But there is a Docker folder. And it does have a cred store in there with index.docker, which is curious because the error message that we're seeing is something to do with hub, I think hub.docker. Let's look at that error again. Here it is. It just says docker.io, but the creds file says index. This is always harder than you think it is, right? This is why software development takes so long. It's not the actual work that takes ages, it's the bumps you get along the way. Let's see if there's another login. The same list of stuff. Mechanics of pushing and pulling. Yes, we'll get to that. Okay. Here's somebody doing exactly what we've just done, i.e. installed containerd and nerd, and then verified it, and then generating some config. Maybe this config is what we need. Okay, so they're talking about sudo. There we are, look. Then we need to make a folder called containerd, which there isn't one. Okay, fine. So let's make a folder called containerd, and then we can do containerd config default, and that spews out some stuff. Cool. Looks very exciting, doesn't it? And then what we actually want to do is we want to pipe that to that config folder we just created. Except we can't find it. That's a bit worrying. And it's a TOML format, which is rather exciting, isn't it? Print working directory root. Okay, did I actually put it in the right place? No, you know what? I didn't make the folder in the right place. contained. Right, okay. And let's try that command again. There we go. Right, now if we restart root system CTL restart contained so that it picks up that config. Sweet. Now apparently we can just run our command and it will work. Wow. I thought it'd be too good to be true. It was worth a go though, wasn't it? I can only assume that this article is old enough when anonymous pulls from Docker Hub were allowed. Failed to verify networking settings. No, we're not getting that, are we? I mean, there are a bunch of plugins. I mean, we could just try a straight up pull. We do a NerdCTL pull and Nginx Alpine. Yeah, I expect to get exactly the same error message, of course, because that's where we are. It's all good learning for our node setup though. Now I did find an article here that talks about plugins, and I'm not entirely sure that that's the problem here. It's to do with authentication we're getting. Fudge obtain error getting credentials. And I suspect it's the way that it's storing the credentials in somewhere where it can't get hold of it. Because whilst this looks like Linux, it's kind of a weird mix of everything. Anyway, that is enough time wasted on that. I shall jump on a proper operating system and have a look at the output. But for now, we're going to assume that because it's quiet, it's going to just shove out the container IDs, which may be wrong. That may be wrong in totality. So then it's going to get a bunch of container IDs that are split by line. So it's one per line, blah blah blah. And then we're just going to go through that list, assign it the string to an ID, and then we pass it back again. This means we want something that spews out, in order to match our test data, it's going to spew out beef and then it's going to spew out chicken on each particular line. So we can have image names equals beef, yeah, something like that. Then is it that way or is it that way? I think it's that way. And then chicken. That's basically what our output should be. So our sub-process result will equal, wow, do you remember this? This is a long time ago, isn't it now? So we run, and run is going to return with a completed process string, which is a sub-process run. Of course, we know who's really good at doing this stuff is our friend AI. Should we ask them? Go on. We want a mock return value for, and let's put it differently. We want to mock sub process run so that we get back image names. Sounds pretty easy, right? There we go. Looking at your thing, I reckon that you want to do this. And yeah, there we go. Subprocess magic mock, which we were nearly there with. So I want to mock that. And okay, mock the standard out with image names. And then we need to patch it. So here we know what to do a with patch, which is part of the PyTest. Look at that, it's always doing it for us. Source container nerd. Now that's wrong, because whilst we are getting subprocess from there, when it actually calls it, patching things is fun. When it calls it, it's from there. Yeah, but that is in that folder. Ooh, yes, because we're calling it from source container nerd. Let's just confirm that. Source container nerd. And then inside that we've got subprocess. So in our patch we need source container nerd and subprocess. And then run. Okay, that might work. And then we're going to, yeah, that's not quite right. It's close, but not quite right. So containers is that. And this assert needs to be inside the with, because, does it? No. Does it? Don't know. Let's run the test, see what happens. Okay, so the test failed because the source container object blah and blah doesn't equal blah and blah. That's probably okay. Because it is all being mocked and stuff. What we really care about is whether the image name is right. So if we say containers 0, which is the first running image container name, and this is going to be a container object, we can then do, right, I want that to be CID, we can fix that in a minute. And that should match our friend up here, which is CID. Okay, so our container class currently has an ID in it, so we can change that to CID. We will change that to CID, and we should change that to CID. And then these will need to be changed as well. If I'd used my editor to edit it, it would have done them all at once, but there we go. And this is editing container. Yeah, because we already edited this to be CID, remember? But that doesn't carry on through. Right, so now we're checking containers, which is what we got back. The first entry in the list, which is a container, and the CID, does that equal our running images CID? In fact, we don't need all of this guff then, do we? What we want is I love it. Right, we want container names. In fact, we want container IDs. Is a list. The first one is beef. The second one is chicken. Okay. Then here, the image names. There's the nicer way of doing this. We can refactor it later. But what I was thinking of is image names is going to be Actually, we'll do it here. This is going to be container IDs. Why are you not container IDs 0? Because if we've defined it in a variable, we don't want to reuse it, do we? Of course we do. And so that will then say container ID 0 and 1. Then here we know that what we get back should be container ID 0. And if we really want to go for it, 1 as well. Okay, let's try this. It failed because $beef doesn't equal beef. You're absolutely right. Where's $beef come from? Oh, because I put a dollar there. Don't need a dollar. Get my languages all mixed up. Okay, and that says chicken is chicken. Yeah, same mistake there. Look. Don't need chicken with the dollars. There we go. So that works. So this is on the massive proviso that we assume that when we run this, it's going to come back with a list. So I'm going to put a big thing in here that says to do check command returns 1 container ID on each line and nothing else. Because my current thought is, remember when we did do the command line, where's that window gone? Oh wow, did I kill it? I got quite upset with the window, sorry about that. Let's open the window again. It wasn't that bad. If we do NerdCTL and PS, then we get a list of gubbins here, which is container, image, command, created at, blah blah blah. And we don't need any of that, we just want the container ID. So I think even if we do it with a -q, it's either going to do one of two things. It's either kind of come back with a list of container IDs and nothing else. Great, that's exactly what we want. Or it's going to come back with a list of everything that says the image ID and command, all that lot. But without an actual container running, we can't verify that right now. And we will get the containers running, but just not today. Cool, so that's our get containers. Now the next stage in this evolution is get containers info. Let's go back to our test. We've got a test that says get containers, now we've got another one that says get containers info. So we are going to look for some info on our thing, and we want to therefore iterate everything in it. So we get back a container object, which just has the thing and a client in it. That's okay. So when we get container info, what do we need? Or what we're going to get back, more like. That I'm not really sure about. We can provide the container ID, which is somewhat useful. And we're going to bring back an object of some sort. So the command that we're going to use, so I kind of already know how to do this in Docker, so it's going to be the same sort of gubbins as this. Okay, but the command is different. So rather than the PS command, which is tell me all the processes, we're going to do an inspect, which is what I alluded to earlier, and then we need to pass in the container ID. There we go. We're going to capture the output. We want it to be text, and if it fails, we want to make sure that we get back some horrible, like this call process error. Okay. Oh, that's in the wrong place. That should be there. So once we've run our inspect command, We then got our inspect data. Okay, so inspect data is, now it spews it out in JSON format, which is really nice. So we can do a JSON loads on it, and then we want the first item out of that JSON object because it's a JSON array. I think if you do inspect on its own without a container ID, it can give you all of the containers. Maybe we should do it that way. Anyway, let's not get too distracted. So we want some stuff in our resources. Now we always want some of the stuff and then we want some of the other stuff, but what exactly are we looking for? So we want to know how much CPU it's actually been allocated, and to get that it's quite confusing, I suppose. So container D itself tracks stuff like the CPU quota, right, which, as it quite helpfully says, is stored in that location. It certainly is. It also stores a period, which is also useful to us, and here it says a total usage. Now we're not that fussed on usage right now. Might be useful, probably not that useful. What we want is the CPU limit, which is the actual thing that it's limited by, and as you can work it out here, it's quite a simple sum. It's the quota divided by the period, and that's if the period exists. Otherwise we can't work it out, because I'm sure you know that if you divide by 0, the computers do complain because you can't divide by 0. So that's kind of what we want. While we're here, we might as well return the other info. So do we have a model? Because as I said earlier, I don't like returning just blank dicts, because a dict doesn't tell anything about your code to anybody else. But in models, do we have something about what a container looks like? I don't think we have, actually, outside of the container config. So we do have a container status. This is probably what we want, actually. Yes. So when we go get the status, we actually want container status object. Now we're not going to know what that is from this point of view. We have no idea, but we are going to get the container ID, which will tell us the container name and the container state, and we only expect to run one container per service per node. We don't have to restrict it like that. We could have multiple containers per service per node, but for just quality of service you wouldn't want to do that. So do we have a started time as well? I'm not sure about that. So we've nearly got one here. This is nearly what we want. Okay. How will we know what the service ID is? That's the only thing I'm having difficulty with right now. But that's okay. So container status is probably what we want to do here. So when we say get container info, we're going to return a container status. Okay, which it likes the look of. It says it's incompatible with the parent. Yes. What do you mean no? Don't be daft. Go here. So get container info. Yeah, so at the moment it says it returns a dict, and info or dict status info. I've forgotten what we're doing now. We were doing container info. Yes, container info is a bit bigger. So this is going to return a container status rather confusingly. Because a container status, that's really going to return a string. It's in fact, we do have another thing for that. Oh, try not to get too distracted. The container status is actually here. It will return one of those. So we can put that in there. What the heck's that? It says it's one of those. There we go. Right, great. So this is what it actually returns. In our implementation, yes, why are we returning a list? Oh yeah, because we are returning a list here. So this is going to be our container status. It's not defined yet. Of course it isn't. So container status is a container status. Maze balls. Okay, and this needs the name. This is where we don't really know what the service name is. I'll be sure about that. Because the container name could be the container name. Okay, let's hover over the yellow because it's going to say service ID is unfilled and the status is unfilled. Yeah, of course it is. Okay, so service, let's just do this on a new line. Right, service ID is going to be, we have no idea. If only we knew what all the fields were. It'd be nice if it just told us what all the fields were. Let's go in here, grab them all from here. Yeah, we haven't written a test yet. Ooh, should have written a test first? Yeah, probably. Do we care? No, of course not. So this is going to equal I mean, it suggested that we grab the container ID from up there, which is fair, but this could be this as well. This is much more likely to be the inspect data, and there's a name on the end of it. And the status, container state. It is a container state. That might need a little bit of work. Let's just stick a comma on there. I won't complain too much then. The health status is health status unknown. Again, that needs a bit of work as well. Not quite sure what difference is between the status. I think the container state was like starting, stopping, that sort of stuff, isn't it? Ports. We kind of want to know what the ports are. It's going to be the port that's in use. So inspect data port bindings. There we go. That's very helpful. The CPU usage. We worked out that it's something else. CPU quota divided by the CPU period. If the period, really? No, that's not the usage, that's the limit. We know what that is. That's the CPU limit, not the usage. Do we actually even have? You know, I've come unstuck because we don't want we do want the usage at some point, but we don't want the live usage. Okay, we'll do that. Yeah, this is not going to like it if we do it that way around. This needs to be defined first. You know, chicken and eggs and all that. Yeah, ID's caught up. So it was in grey, saying it was unused, and I couldn't work out why. The memory used is slightly different here, but we can work that out as well. So that's the host config memory, and then that needs to be divided by gigs. Oh, and that's in megs, in this case divided by megs. Okay, tell you what, we're going to change this a little bit because this code's a little bit flaky right now. If we do host config, we seem to do that a lot. Let's just do it in 2 words so that it looks like it's spelled proper. And then this, we don't want to do that. We want to do get. The reason why we can do get is if it is a straight up bracket lookup like this, then you might get a key exception, which is, you know, okay, I suppose, but you might get a typo in there and it'll tell you about it, which is great. Other times though, the code might just not return that key at all, in which case it's nice to provide a default, like naught, or a empty dictionary. This is why I don't like using dictionaries, is because the awkwardness of not knowing what keys are in there and what keys aren't in there. So let's just fix up all of these to be host config get with a default of 0. And then that should all be there. And that should be there. In fact, we can change this to a get. And if it's empty, give it an empty thing. Okay. Right. Status is a special case. So we need to work on this up here. So I mean, status itself is a inspect data state status, as it says there. So let's quickly convert that into our get formats. So if that's null, it needs to be an empty dictionary, and then on that dictionary we can get status, and that can be an empty string if it's not there. Oh, I think we missed a dot. There we go. Super. Right, so that's a string. What the heck is it suggesting? It's suggesting container state equals container status dot container state from nerd status. What the heck's from nerd status? That's just something it's made up. Absolutely made that up. Gotta love it. Let's create a function that doesn't exist. I mean, it's fair, but we probably do need to do something like that because Where's my thing here? So we've got container state and health state. Container state is this: running, stopped, pause, restarting. And the health state is healthy, unhealthy, starting, and unknown. And so we want something that will convert the string into the enum, and don't have a great thing for that either, but we can do a utility for it, right? Where should we put it? I mean, part of me says it should be here, part of me should be somewhere else because it's kind of core to the actual model itself. So let's do it in the model itself here. Okay, so utils.py, we got ourselves a little models util.py, and we want container status from string, and we want a status that is a string, and we're going to return a, is it container status? They think it is. And then we want a similar thing, container status toString. Yeah, maybe, why not? Go the other way around. And then we want a, what was the other status? The health status is the other one. So we want health status from string. It's not a container status, it's a health status. Of course it is. Okay, great. And I'm going to completely cheat on this. Let's give Junior a little go here. We have we need a couple of utility functions that are outlined in models/utils.py. Please code and create some tests. Well, what could go wrong here, right? I know, it could go in a multitude of directions. So first, it's got to go find what the heck we're talking about. And the fact that I give it a heavy clue to the path and it's open should help. So first thing it says is I'm going to go to source models utils. Great, so that's the file we're talking about. Now it's going to look at the rest of the init, which is where the models are because we're importing it here. Okay, and it's suggesting some code, so let's have a look at what code it is suggesting here. So here we are, we got our 3 functions and it's replaced them with, let's import container state. Okay, and it says try container state equals container state lower. Where's container state? What's container state? Have I missed something here? What? Oh, it's container state, not container status. Oh, what a dumbass. Okay. It's actually container state. Yeah. So does that mean it's actually done it properly? No. Sort of. I can see what it says. It's not relevant, but it's there. Okay, that's not a half bad attempt. Seems that I led it astray because we actually wanted a container state here, but it's told us that it's a status.lower, which is nice. And then if it's a value error, it does that. Okay. The other way round is return it straight away. Easy peasy. And then this one is going to be similar as well. Just 2 lower. So that's kind of what it should be. So we'll approve that because that is what I intended, nearly. And now it's going to look for the tests. Tests have been created. Components, agent, tests, models in it. Okay. Sure. Carry on. Now I'm going to upset it a lot here because I'm going to fix this to actually what we wanted it to do. Oh, okay, it's created in the file. It can work faster than us humans, you see. So that's a container state. That's a state. And this should be return container state. Easy peasy. And that can be yes, that's expecting a state. That's why status is in there. It's just that. Easy, and that's okay. Right. So container. Oh, it's just got it in there twice. Okay, fine. That should be fine, right? No, the tests are going to break because I've already updated the code here. So it's going to try and run the tests. It failed due to incorrect attribute access and assertions. Ooh, what did it actually do? Container status has no status value. Oh, okay. That's right, because it's state. Right, it's now giving us more flam. It's very verbose, you know. It gives us very nice docs as well, which is fine. But for such a small function, it's like larger than the function. Okay, so now it's gonna go run the tests again, see if they pass. Yeah, it says here test file has been updated to align with what the human did to me. Okay, there we are. So we ended up with some utils and we got some test functions, and we are good. Thank you very much. That was very lovely. So it spotted my mistake, which is nice, and then I spotted my mistake, so that's even nicer. And then it's got a little exception here, so try and get it to lower. If we get a value error, then we're going to raise a value error that says status is that and the valid values are, and spew them all out the enum. The other way around, it doesn't do anything because, I mean, status, we're just going to return the status as the value, which is already a string. And this way it does a similar thing. So it tries to locate it, does that, and jobs are good. So this is great. What did we want this for? We wanted it for our function over here. So when we do a container state, we're getting a status, and then here we can do container container state from status. Was it from state? I think it's from that. And cannot assign to a function call. Right, okay, so the status actually needs to be done up here. Because we can't do it as a function call within that, which is fine. You know, it's quite confusing, quite compact. Right, now this says create a function, which means I called it the wrong thing, which I thought I did. We fluffed up so many levels. So container status from string. So actually we don't want a container state. We want, yeah, we're done status, we want a state. So we'll rename that actually. Let's do this properly. Come on. Right. Refactor. Rename. And the reason why we do it this way is because I know that we refer to it in the tests. So if I do that, that should update the tests as well. Let's just have a little look see at the test. Models, test init, and it called state rather than status. So yeah, it's already renamed it in there, which is super. And this is the same, so we're going to rename this container status to string. Again, rename, refactor. It's actually a container state to string, not container state from string. Okay, so that should now say, come on, catch up. Container state from status. I thought that's what it was called. Okay, we'll just manually put it in here then. Source, models, utils, container state from string. There we go. We really must have called it something really wrong. Container state from status. Oh right, okay, there we go. Oh. It's container status from string. And then we give it the string. Super. Right. I can only assume my IDE is struggling a little bit. So then health, we do the same thing. So this is expecting a health status. So here we can say health equals, is that not the same thing? I need to know what that is from the inspect command. But as we said earlier, we don't actually have a thing running, so we can't check it. But that looks like the same. Oh no, it's then health status. Okay, so this is container health from string. Now, is that what we actually called it? That's the tests. That's the thing. Oh, it's health status from string. Yeah, I prefer what I called it just now. Okay, let's rename it to container health from string. Naming things is hard. Fortunately, we can rename them. It's amazing. Okay, container health from string. Okay, import, good. So this then says get state blah, get health blah, get status. Okay, if that's true, then that works. If it's not true, then it won't work. Stating the obvious here. Okay, that should be an equal sign because we are applying it into a function. Essentially, it's the constructor. Ports is inspect data. Right, let's change that to a get because it's a little bit safer. And then if it's empty, it needs to be a that, because if it's a that and we do a get, then nothing blows up, which is good. And then we can get that just like that. And if that's empty, we'll do a default. Now it defaults to none, and if we're expecting a string, it's better to have an empty string than it is to have a none. Marginal though, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay, let's convert this to a get. So we're getting, I thought we already had a thing for host config actually. We have a host config dot get. We do. We really do. So if this is a bit empty, then that says a number this time. Let's just tidy these up. It's going to tell me that anyway. Right. Yes, we can replace that with a host config. Okay, nearly there. Started at. Wow. Do we have a way of doing the started at? I don't think so. In which case we can just thingy, and we're going to assume no error messages for now. We can come back and fix those later. It's all fine. In fact, the only thing that we really want to know is the service ID, and that's the thing that we really don't have. But that's fine. We can work that out later. Whatever's calling this function can say if service ID is empty, then do something. Right, so get container info. It calls this command. It calculates some stuff, calculates some more stuff, populates a container status, and then returns container status. If something goes wrong, it then outputs an error message. Super. How amazing is that? It's quite amazing, right? And so that is our command. We really want to have a test for that, don't we? Of course we do. So into test nerd, we do have our test here. Shall we use our friend to create a test? Now which friend shall we have? We'll pick this friend here. Please write the test for test get container info. Is that really what we called it? Let's see, my brain's so scattered. Yeah, get container info. It's supposed to return a container status, but got container status or a none instead. Okay, that's fine. That is kind of fine. If it can't find a status, then it should return a none. We should probably update the interface for this. This is the only downside of stuff, is we do get a bit of duplication here and here. But by having all this type stuff in here, it means we can like keep it quite tight in the editor, and it also means that we get some error messages like that. So it's like it was returning none before, we wouldn't have known that, and we could have fixed a bug before it really happened. So it's all good. So here we are. Please write a test for test get container info. Now, do we want to help it even more? Probably. Each container expect has information we need, like that. Yes, it does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go info equals get container info beef. Right, and then we will. Yes, there's a bunch of asserts. Nice. Create a function. No, we don't need to create a function. We want to. Oh, okay. We need a new nerd, don't we? That's what it is. Right, let's tidy this one up. So we get a nerd, and then we ask the nerd get container info based on that. Now that's kind of interesting because sometimes when we initialize a nerd, it's already got a container in it with a client. Have I completely gone mad again? No, we're just expecting that. But nerd confines to that. We don't need to pass container ID then, because a container has that and container has the nerd client in it. That's really confusing. I've really confused myself. So this should be called on itself, shouldn't it? And therefore that is self.container_id, which doesn't exist because it's called CID. And now that's where I confused myself. Okay. Container class has the nerd on it, not the nerd class. Yeah, so this is fine. This is fine because then if we had, let me tell you what I'm waffling on about here. Where's the test? So the test could say, here gets a nerd, and we go nerd get container info beef, right? The other way of doing it is if we've already got a container, like we have in our earlier example. So we've got container beef, right, with a nerd. Okay, like that. Then we'd be able to do something like, let's just import this a minute. What's the matter with you? Unexpected argument. Oh yeah, probably. It's not an argument name. It's just a thing. Then from here we could say info equals. This needs to be something. I can say my container dot get info or something like that. Now that doesn't actually exist because we haven't got the container class. But that's a way that you would do it if we were doing this properly. But container at the moment doesn't have any functions defined. Yes, it does. It has loads. Oh, it doesn't have get info. It just says status. Get container status. Oh man. Okay, let's do this while we're here. Seems I'm talking about it. Sync def get info self, and it returns a container status, wasn't it? Yeah, a container status, which then does that. So it then calls its client, which is the nerd, and it says get container info, which is underneath, which is exactly what I mean. Where were we in here? So I think it's just called info now, right? Let's just delete this. It should tell me all about it. No. Get info. Oh man, come on, what did I just call it? Yeah, info. Info. Let's respond to the info. Add method info in class container. Right, okay. There we go. This lot should all be in by 1. That's why. And what's the matter with this? Expected type dict got health status instead. What? I mean, it totally should be a health status. That's because that should say health status. There we go. Good. Right. Yeah, so just to explain what happened there, because these were back here at the top level, they're outside of the class, which means they're just normal definitions that happen to be in this file. What we really wanted though was them to be member functions, so that when we called it from here, it's actually a member function like that. So that's what we might do at a higher level when we've got the container, but here we're just testing nerd, so we don't want any of that rubbish because we don't need it. In fact, I'm just going to delete it, put it back later. So we got nerd, then info is that, and now here it's complaining that all of this stuff doesn't exist, which is somewhat odd because we're returning we're returning back. What are we getting back? It returns back a coroutine. Okay, that's why. So this needs to be awaited because it's a coroutine. This then needs to be an async, and then because it's an async, we need to tell PyTest about it. Right, there we go. Oh right, okay, and now everything's fine. Yeah, it wasn't immediately clear from that error message that was what was wrong, but there we go. So now that's returning a thing. It's a coroutine, so it's coroutine. Therefore here we get back our container status, and then our container status has got all of this stuff in it. Cool. So in our test, all we need to do is set up the mock for the actual sub-process. So please complete the test for blah 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 info with the required, with the mock for sub-process. And it'll take a little while to think about that because in the beginning there was nothing, and then it's got to go look at some stuff. So it's going to look at our test file here, and it'll go, oh right, okay, here's the test. Now I'm going to go look at the actual nerd, which is over here. So it's just gathering context right now. And so then it's going to look at container status, I expect. Yeah, it wants to look at our models. And now it's got even more context. So it knows what the models look like, and knows what the test looks like. It knows what the function looks like. And we've already told it that we need to mock something. So now it's going to come up with changes, which look something like this. So it's even used my naming from before because I put this given when then. the AI models understand that as a pattern. So it's said given, and it's put all of our setup mock data in here like this, and then it's mocked it to there. Then it's done the patch. Then it's calling the thing with a container info, and it's using container ID because it's better to use a variable if you've already got it in a variable. Then it's actually asserting that it called the mock. That's a nice touch. I mean, that's a bit implementation detail really, but we are testing the nerd itself, so why not test that it checked and it actually called nerd. And then we assert all of the gubbins afterwards. So that looks like a good change to me. And now I would imagine it's going to think about running it. Nope. It wanted to make another small change. Oh yeah, of course it needs to import JSON. Well spotted. Imports are important. And so now it's done that. And now it's thinking about running it. And there we go. I'm going to quickly run it. Now we've got a syntax error. I'm a nosy oik. I wonder what that syntax error was. Oh, it's talking about PS1. That's beautiful. Char, Python, and right. Okay, yeah. That's that old chestnut. Because I'm running on Windows, that is not valid. If it ran it in a bash shell, then that would be valid. So it just changes the syntax slightly, and then it runs it. And so it's run the tests, and in a moment it's going to tell us what it thought about the tests. Apparently we broke something in the test because it's in the wrong format apparently. Interesting. That may or may not bite us later. I do wish I had a command line of NerdCTL so I can actually run these commands and see what the raw output actually is. And because it made that test up there, it then changed this down here. But that's more like what I'd expect it to spew out. But we can't check for sure. Anyways, it'll make the test pass. We can verify whether it actually does the right thing later on. So let's run the test again. And we had a validation error, indicating the mock data is wrong. Nice. Yes, input should be a valid integer. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, that is true. I mean, we're just after the host port. So what I can do here, and I can say we are after just the host port. Now it tends to not take effect straight away when you interrupt it like that. It's still got all of this context, so it won't have to go off and read the files again. But it does tend to hang on to its plan. And then it tries to fix the thing that it tried to fix. So what's it going to do now? It's going to look at nerd again. That's me editing that. Yeah, so when it gets port bindings, it's not exactly right. So it's now decided that we need to change something. So it's not getting that anymore, it's getting ports. So it's taking this bit of code out of here, and it's now grabbing the port bindings like it was before. But port bindings isn't a string, it's a dictionary, and then it's going to go through them all here and then extract the port number without the protocol. So it's going to split the protocol off the end, and then it's going to grab the host port, and then it'll just do that, which is super. So it did take notice of what I said, which is always nice. most things ignore me. And then it's changed it so that it just gets the host port, because that's really what we're after. The host port in this case is the port that it's been presented on. So there'll be an internal port for the container. If your actual app is sharing its goodness on port 5000, but then when it gets hosted in Docker, we can't assume that port 5000 is available on the host, so we just assign it a random port number. And then when we talk to the host from the outside, we can hit that random port number, whatever that happened to be, and it will then get routed internally to the Docker container on port 5000, and therefore it will work as we expect. So there we go, that's fixed my little gaff as well, which is even nicer. Whether it works or not, I don't know. We haven't got working NerdCTL with a running container, so we can't contain our excitement any further. But let's run the tests. How far are we doing? Okay, so we've written a whole load of code. We've still got our failing test in system where it will get some cores, but I feel this is quite long already, so I'm going to pause it there. And in the next video, what we will do is we will grab our failing test here, and it's going to go get the actual free CPU cores, so we can write that function finally after a lot of legwork. So I'm going to commit this, save it up, and it'll be ready for you in the comments. Thanks for watching and listening, and see you on the next one.